Rojo, or Rojo, as some people were saying. So, Argentinian film, directed by Benjamin Neistat. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but this is a really strange movie that kind of I was talking before. I keep referring back to previous reviews. We were talking before about it. This is a film that creeps up on you in a strange way, almost like a kind of cold hand on the back of the neck. It begins with a long shot of a house being emptied. It's set in pre-coup Argentina, of a house being emptied, and you're not quite sure why, what's happening. There's something deeply sinister about what's going on. We then meet our central character, Claudio, played by Dario Grandinetti, who is an apparently sort of civilized middle-class lawyer who is in a restaurant waiting for his wife to turn up. His wife is late. He is occupying the table. Somebody else comes in who is... wants a table and sees him sitting there and says, "Have you finished?" He says, "No, I'm waiting for my wife." And I said, "Well, the tables aren't here for people to sit out and wait. I want to eat." And so Claudio then says, "Okay, fine, you have the table. You're quite right, you have the table." And he gets up and then he stands to the side of the bar and he then proceeds to humiliate the man with this kind of very erudite, withering speech about, you will never know any form of success because you're a terrible, pathetic individual and everybody hates you and you don't know it. And the reason is because you've never been raised to... And he sort of eviscerates him verbally. Then, outside the restaurant, the guy turns up and an altercation ensues. At the end of the altercation, there is a choice, which is you can do the right thing or you can do the thing which is bury the altercation and kind of pretend that it never happened. And this then sets the table for the rest of what is to come. The film is playing out in a country in which characters are disappearing. They are being disappeared, historically, in which corruption is endemic and is seeping through the fabric of everyday life in a way which is really very, very creepily evoked. And what the film then does is it manages this kind of very clever balancing act between, on the one hand, being a kind of satire of bourgeois narcissistic complacency, and on the other hand, being something which almost borders on a horror film in its depiction of something which is poisoned and, it is drawing on a deep well of corruption. And what I really liked about the film, quite apart from the fact that I think it's very well done, it's very, very well designed. There are certain sequences in it that are very, very tense. There are other sequences in it that are kind of absurd and satirical, is that, as I said before, it kind of creeps up on you. You don't really know at the beginning what it is that you're watching. And it's a show don't tell. It's a film in which the story becomes apparent through the actions of the characters. A detective turns up to investigate a case, and he's a TV detective, but he's got a touch of that Columbo thing about him, that he's, he always gets his man, although he appears initially to be a kind of slightly caricatured character. And this creeping unease seeps up through the film itself. And I thought it was very well done, not least because, particularly since we were talking earlier on about it, and we were talking about the absence of dread and the everything being in the end being made okay by a joke. This is a film in which that's not true. It's a film in which there is a sharp edge to it, and the satire and the humour doesn't do anything to take the sharpness off the edge. What it actually does is amplify it and make it into something which can slip even in the course of a conversation between something which is kind of a satire to something which is altogether more disturbing. Very well made.